So this documentary actually talks about that, this patriotism, which is an archaic, really outdated notion of USA, USA, not knowing. But we're going to talk about that and how Israeli folks were able to. I'm reading, excuse me, how they were indoctrinated into this madness. Okay, so that's the setup, and here we go. We do have Victor with us. Victor went to Cuba because there's wars everywhere, y'all. Excuse me, I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little mad, but that's how it gets when your power is. It's not all our power is not taken to us, but we're not utilizing all the power that we can to make this a better world. Victor, it's welcome to Cut to the Chase, number one.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, as we're getting his volume up, we'll figure out why we can't hear him. Oh, okay, I don't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Thank you for joining us. So let's start out with what happened. I think on the 21st of March, y'all went down to Cuba and you gave a lot of military, not military, we need military aid. We need a revolutionary army like in the 59 revolution. But you took aid down there. Give us an update. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so we took a delegation out to Cuba from the United States, but there were over 600 delegates from over 30, around 33 countries who were part of this convoy. More than $400,000 worth of humanitarian supplies were provided to Cuba, medical equipment, medicines, staple foods, infant nutrition, hygiene supplies, over $500,000 worth of solar panels and generators to support hospitals and essential infrastructure. Over 2,000 pounds of medical supplies from Europe was provided. Over 6,000 pounds overall of supplies were provided to Cuba, cancer medicines, um, another 1,000 pounds of medical supplies from Brazil, solar power equipment from Colombia, $100,000 in aid from maternity centers. So that's as far as the aid is concerned, that's what was provided. Um, and everywhere we went, and when people either recognized us or when the conversation, came up, um, the Cubans were very, very grateful, extremely grateful. They would often put their hands over their hearts and showing their gratitude, and you could see them sometimes holding back tears, and they would often say, "You have no idea what this means to us." And so that was the mission. Besides that, we were invited to go um, um, see the president of Cuba speak, and along with other distinguished guests. There were a bunch of panelists that were able to speak to us. I would have more detailed information about that, except that my cell phone was confiscated. That's another story. Let me know when you're ready to get into that. But it was confiscated on the way back. But to sum up, that's we were there for the humanitarian aid, and we were able to speak to many Cubans, both regular common folks, working class folks, and experts in particular fields.
Wow. So yeah, don't let me forget to talk about the cell phone
Yeah.
confiscation. But so you're there in Cuba. I mean, for those who don't know, and I'm sure there's not too many of you who don't know, the United States has had this blockade or embargo on Cuba for almost, 60 years because they don't like Cuba. You know, why don't they like them? Because they're afraid that their model, economic model and social model, will, what they say, domino to America, which would be better for the people, not the oligarchs, the rich people, and the government, but it would be better for the people. So you were there. Are the people getting frustrated because they've been in this situation for a long time? I know there's opposition in Cuba, but what is your sense of that? People just want to live. It's like just I don't want to do this. Just let me live in peace. So what can you talk about that at all? Did you see any of that?
The
Back
Cuban
home.
people are sure, sure. The Cuban people are very resilient. I'm very confident that they'll make it out of this particular crisis. And just for folks, just to put it into context, so it's not just the blockade, but the recent measures of January 29th, when the Trump administration designated Cuba as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States, it is not. It essentially created an oil blockade, and so Cuba has not received oil in 3 months. You can't run a country like Cuba without oil. It's impossible. Hospitals, whether we're talking about hospitals or social services, or I'm sure some people have seen the images, which is true, that the trash buildup is building up because they
Mm,
can't pick up the trash. Um, Education is being affected by this, so the schools are being affected by this. Transportation is being affected by this. The natural gas infrastructure, electricity, all of water filtration systems, all of these things are being impacted by these recent measures and the oil blockade, um, imposed onto Cuba by the Trump administration. To answer your question, the Cubans are, again, they're resilient, but I did sense that they were just tired. That they're tired. And I on this particular question, what I thought about this a lot while I was there, and I just the blockade is an illegal, criminal, inhumane blockade. Our government is doing this to these people. And I think us leftists, progressives, revolutionaries, we really need to stop saying, well, Trump is not my president or this is not our government. No, we pay taxes. I'm a US citizen. I live here. This is our government. We have to take some ownership and responsibility because we need to change this system. We need to change this reality. What we're doing to these people is criminal.
hmm
It's inhumane. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Sorry if I get a little emotional.
It is an emotional
They
topic, so don't. So feel
they
free.
they don't deserve this. They're good people. They're peaceful people. Another thing that stood out, and I'm sorry that I'm digressing to another topic, but I was fascinated by the fact that there's no police out there. You don't need them
Yes.
because Cubans are peaceful people.
Right.
Cuba is one of the safest places in the region, probably, if not the safest place in the entire hemisphere. You don't ever have to worry about someone attacking you, somebody mugging you. I'm not saying those things never happen. I'm saying that they're rare. So it was weird to be in a place where there's no police. I'm Dominican. This is a great anecdote from my Dominican folks. When I landed, I said, "Oh, this looks like the Dominican Republic." Except what's fascinating is, and some people may laugh at this, but everybody stops, all the drivers stop at the red light. They all stop at the intersections. They all stop at the stop signs. Now, some might say, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Well, for my Dominican folks, go to the Dominican Republic and see what happens. Nobody stops at the red lights. Nobody. In other words, the Cubans are disciplined. They're orderly. They believe in the rule of law. There's no violence in Cuba. They're such a peaceful, dignified, remarkable set of human beings. I aspire to be more like the Cubans. I want my Dominican people and my Latin
Uh-oh.
American folks
That's
to
a threat.
aspire.
That's a threat to the U.S. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wish I could be half of what these people are.
Mm,
I was blown away by what I saw, and these people don't deserve this type of treatment. I do agree that Cuba is that bad example. This model that exists, the reason why, again, I was thinking about these things when I was out there, and you can only come to one conclusion is that this is a threat to the United States way of life,
hmm
the way these people behave, the way
Capitalism.
these people think. Cubans are superhumans. They have superpowers that I don't think that even they understand. They've reached higher levels of consciousness
That's true.
that I don't think that I can't even describe it. I can't put into words. I will tell you a quick anecdote. I get on um, they have like these tricycle transports. It's kind of like a little taxi. And as I'm hopping onto this thing, the driver is having a full-blown conversation with the two sisters, women workers who were already on their way to some destination. and they're talking about the blockade. They're talking about who does the United States empire think that they are, that we'll never be slaves to anyone again. We'll never be colonized by anyone again. Who does Marco Rubio think that he is? Just lift that blockade and watch what will happen. Watch how we'll turn into a super country. We'll turn this country into a mega power. And I'm just there sitting quietly, listening to these three workers have this full-blown conversation about on colonialism, slavery, empires, so on and so the blockade. And that's just one little anecdote. I have so many like that. Um, and I'm sorry I went in all the different directions, but to answer your original question, are they tired? They're tired. Do they deserve this? They don't deserve this. Are they going to make it? I have full confidence that they're going to make it and that they're going to be, as they always been, they're very resilient. They'll figure it out.
I have confidence too. I think this is going to be a turning point for Cuba. I see them taking back the base that the United States has in Guantanamo. I see that they will get that back. Why? Because the whole world is changing now. You mentioned that you're from the Dominican. Cuba, I've been to Cuba a couple of times, and it's an amazing place. The people are very generous. They're very kind. They're not. You see very few police, like you said, but why are they a threat? We know why they're a threat. Now, when I was there, we had this conference on racism. There's racism, there's colorism more so in Cuba, but they look at it, they see the problem, and they try to fix it. In Dominica, they're escalating racism. They kicked out all the Haitians a few years ago. Said, go, dark skin, because of course, if you don't know the topography, the I'm sorry, it's Haiti and the Dominican share one island.
Correct.
Got split down the middle.
Right.
So Dominican is on one side, and the Haitians are basically, they speak Creole. It was France, darker skinned people. The Dominicans speak Spanish, lighter skin. They kicked all. It's just a racist society.
Great.
Dominican, I'm talking about. When I was in Cuba, we had some Dominicans talking about that who were, Spanish speaking, lighter skin. Said, no, this is racism. We're fighting against it. So I just wanted to put that out there as for informational purposes. Now we talk about the convoy that you took. Mexico was going to send some oil to Cuba. And of course, the United States threatened them. Okay, so they said, okay, we're not going to do it, but we'll send humanitarian aid. So I heard this morning 2 of the boats went missing. Do you have any
Right.
information on that?
There's a rescue search right now for them. I don't have more additional information other than there's a rescue search. And my hearts go out to everyone, on those their family, to everyone, who was a part of that and their families. But right now there is a rescue search. I don't have much additional information.
My fear is that they could have been bombed like those other boats that were just going through the Caribbean or detained by the U.S. military. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Also, there was a Russian, was it a tanker? Let me see.
A Russian tanker that had to reverse.
So why did it have to reverse?
Same thing. The United States, there were threats. My understanding is that they felt the threat was too large, and so they just returned.
So they're doing a Strait of Hormuz type thing. You can't come through here
Yeah.
in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Okay.
They're not allowing, the United States empire is not allowing Cuba to get oil, and it's intentional. It's the goal. It's the goal. The goal of the United States empire is just the same. It's a continuation of the same policies over the last 60 some years. They're hoping for for the people to revolt and blame the government of Cuba, to blame the revolution and to revolt. The problem with that is that the math doesn't add up. It's not, the math is not mathing, because the Cuban Revolution, regardless of what the propaganda, the media, the capitalist media says or prints here, the reality is that it's overwhelmingly supported by the people. So the Cuban Revolution is popular,
Yes.
And let's just keep it real here. They also have an intelligence apparatus that is second to none. And so, while you don't see much police, and this is true, and I can attest to that, their intelligence apparatus is elite, elite, and there's a reason for that. And the intelligence apparatus is built amongst the people. It's the people themselves. They won't allow a counter-revolution. So it's almost impossible to create a counter-revolution in Cuba because of the entire ecosystem. It's not going to happen. And so they're doing these things hoping for something to happen internally. It's not going to happen.
I would agree with that because they're educated. Well, after the '59 revolution and Fidel Castro came into power, one of the things he did was start a literacy campaign.
Correct.
And that literacy campaign educated the people in their own image, in what they are knowing, what they do and what they know. So that's key. Could you do this? Could you connect? Because we're going to also we're going to if you can connect, because we're also going to pivot to see how this war on Cuba, which has been going on, connect that to the other wars, specifically the one in Iran and generally the one in if you can, Ukraine. I mean, so many, Haiti. Can you connect that? Are they connected or are they totally separate?
No, there's definitely a connection here. The Trump administration, the Trump regime is, I think, overall, empire is desperate and it's acting in a desperate manner. So if we go back, so let's go back a little bit. So in, within the imperial core, within the United States, we saw what was happening with ICE. That's an act of desperation. Let's blame the other. Let's blame that. Let's start doing that. Let's start blaming another group of people for the problems that are exist here in the United States because of the contradictions that are continue to escalate because this system right now, as it stands, as it is constructed, the contradictions continue to escalate. And so instead of having you pay attention to what the system, they want you to blame other people. So we saw what happened with ICE last year and going into this year, in places like Minnesota and other places. Then you had January 3rd, where on January 3rd, the United States invaded, essentially invaded Venezuela. No respect for the sovereignty of Venezuela. It was a unprovoked act of war where they bombed Venezuela. Over 100 people died in Venezuela because of those bombings.
Hmm.
Um, 32 of them were Cuban, part of the security detail of Nicolas Maduro,
Hmm.
and they kidnapped the President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. And in fact, just yesterday they had their first court hearing. Just as a quick side note on that, the judge looks like is siding with Maduro's defense in that Maduro's defense is saying that so the United States is essentially not allowing Maduro to have access to the state funds, which he's the sitting president of Venezuela. The United States is now doing business with the Chavistas after all that. And so the defense is making the case for he should be able to have a proper defense. So that took place yesterday. Um, we know about the measures now, as I alluded to earlier, about January 29th against Cuba. Again, Cuba has not received oil in 3 months. This is another act of war. Trump has not only threatened, well, he did what he did on January 3rd with Venezuela, and now then he's been threatening Cuba. He's also threatened Mexico. He's also threatened Colombia. And he's also threatened essentially all of Latin America, and acting in a way of like when you hear Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio talk, they talk like gangsters. They're not even talking like dignitaries or distinguished politicians, or they're just talking like gangsters. So they're threatening the entire region. Um, and this particular iteration of empire, MAGA, is an existential threat to Latin Americans in the Caribbean, period. And then when we talk about Iran, again, it was an unprovoked war. The Iranians were in the middle of negotiations with the Americans, and they bombed them. They assassinated the Ayatollah, which again is like assassinating um,
No, I'm talking to my engineer. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We do sign language. I was
Okay,
going to tell
gotcha,
him.
gotcha.
I was
Okay,
going
I
to
don't know
tell
if
him
you
to
were
cue
talking
up
to
the
me.
last poets.
Okay, so they they essentially they assassinated the Ayatollah, which is like equivalent to like assassinating the Pope, right?
Mm, mm.
Um, and remember, 160 plus little schoolgirls got bombed, um, based off of a quote unquote mistake in Iran. Initially, the Trump administration was denying that it was them. They were trying to blame the Iranians, and now we know for sure, after several media outlets reported that it was the United States, and the Trump can no longer deny that. When we talk about Ukraine, that the Ukraine thing was always a proxy, for Western imperialism and to try to figure out a way to get NATO to continue to expand and threaten Russia. And the reason why I defend Russia's right to defend itself is because, again, for one, I'm just, again, if I can keep it real, Russia's been a great friend to Latin America. Russia's been part of the anti-imperialist, network, if you will, on a global scale. And whatever you may think of Putin, at the end of the day, he is playing that role. My understanding is that the Communist Party in China, in Russia, excuse me, is the biggest and most active political party in Russia. And while Russia is not a socialist nation at all, we know about the fall of the Soviet Union. Putin does play a major role on the international scale, on an international platform. And so I hope I did a okay job of connecting those things. But at the end of the day, empire is desperate. Remember that the United States is a service sector and distribution economy mostly. We don't produce things. We don't have factories producing things. We don't have the raw materials here. They come from places in Africa and Latin America and Asia. Productive forces are all over Asia, specifically China and Latin America and Africa. Raw materials, these things are found elsewhere, right? And so what does the United States do? It's acting out of desperation in attacking these places to try to, again, consume, control, and monopolies. That's what, right? That's what the name of the game is. They need to be able to control the rest of the world so we can continue to buy stuff and import stuff. I'm in New Jersey. You're out in the West Coast. You got ports out there in the West Coast. We got ports out here in the East Coast. We bring these things in from other parts of the world. They get docked and they get distributed all over the place. But we don't make these things. We don't have the raw materials or the natural resources to make these things. They exist in other places of the world, but yet we consume most of the world's stuff. Um, and so that's what's happening.
You're listening to Victor Coronado. We're going to pivot. You're welcome to stay on as we pivot, though. The number to call if you want to talk to him or our next section is 818-985-5735. Hit option 1 to talk to him. Iran, there's a lot of reasons that they say that Iran is why they invaded Iran, nuclear, this, that. But the last poets have the answer to why the United States, one of the reasons they invaded Iran. So if we can, let's hear the last poets, what they have to say. No last poets? Okay. They look on that flash drive there. It might be on that flash drive if you have left. Under kitchen things. So
learning about the quote-unquote conflict is something that...
Okay, I don't have it. Doggone it. I really wanted, I'll have to check that out. So what we're going to do now, we're going to pivot to Iran. And and Israel, the conflict with Israel and Iran. So what I find out, what I'm looking at is the indoctrination, the psychological warfare, the reasons why we do what we do, why we believe what we believe, why we go along with murder and killing and kidnapping and starving people. And we go along with it and we say this is okay because the last poet says the white man has a God complex. Well, this is what they say.
Up, down, on the corner, uptown. I turned around and hear the sound of voices talking about who's gonna die next. Cause the white man's got a God complex. Silent niggas scream for help. Ah, help me, nigga, make your own help. Shit, you need it. I turn around and hear the sound of jukeboxes playing in bars.
All right, this is not the edited version. So I had the edited version, but basically you got the gist of it. The white man has a God complex. Matter of fact, even the state of Israel is built on a biblical or so-called biblical prophecy, whereas the Messiah will return and he will, and this is your land. And we've dealt with that in past shows. Go to kpfk.org/archives and listen to some of the stuff we talked about. But my question is, why all this support for murder and mayhem and death? And there's a documentary, a movie, whichever it is called, I'm not sure. I'm That Jew is the name of it. It's filmed by Aaron Axelman and Sam Erlitzen. So we're going to play some of that. I Am That Jew. And what it shows me is the same thing, the indoctrination, the training, the mind control that was put on us to make us think that we have that God complex, that we are justified for starving a people for wanting to be different, that we have the right to kill 2,000 people. For what reason? Because you got a goddamn God complex. Let's go to clip one.
The first time I've been to the United States, I met so many nice people. Jewish Americans will tell me things like, we like you, but we don't like Palestinians. Even though I'm the only Palestinian they know. Of course, around that time, I would take it personally. But then you come to realize that people do not know. They know nothing about Palestine and Palestinians, or have no idea about what Palestinians are going through.
Yes. They have no idea what Palestinians are going through, but they're killing them. Our tax money. Victor said something, said it's our government. You know, yes and no. It is, but it is not. I didn't, it's the corporation's government, because my vote does not count. We have the Electoral College and this other madness. So it's really not mine. So we're going to continue. So this is what I'm saying. I'm playing this to show you. This movie shows why most of the Israeli people are for this war, because they've been indoctrinated. We're going to go to the second clip and see how, like, when I was a child, we had to, I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. I didn't know what I was saying. Finally, I didn't have to do it because my mother got into a different religion. But that's how they indoctrinate us, and Israel is doing the same thing to their children. Go ahead.
On some of my Hebrew textbooks from elementary school, Israel shel Simcha, my Israel. Congratulations to Simone Zimmerman for winning the Israel Jubilee contest, February 1998. I was 7. I had like a pretty traditional Jewish upbringing. I grew up in LA. I went to a Jewish day school, kindergarten through the end of high school. I went to Jewish youth group, Jewish camp. I have family in Israel. I lived in Israel in high school on an exchange program. Israel was just treated like a core part of being a Jew. So you did prayers and you did Israel.
Israel's something that I feel so passionately about. Like it's my greatest passion. Everything Israel. I became a Jewish educator after my daughters started Hebrew school. I started teaching 2nd grade. During the years, I did 4th grade also. And just to be able to start them on this wonderful journey. I mean, it gets in your blood. And we teach Israel at the day school very well. We introduce them to the food and to the music and to the culture, in addition to the history and the geography.
Figure out which one is the Israeli flag. Draw a circle around every time you see the symbol of the State of Israel. Draw your own symbol of the State of Israel. We also celebrated holidays, obviously. So Hanukkah, Israeli independence, all of it together.
Can you separate Israel and Judaism? I don't know. I can't. Some people I think can. To me, it's the same. You can't separate it. Israel is Judaism and Judaism is Israel. And that is who I am and that is my identity. And I think every single thing that I experienced along my life has melded into that. Like there was never, a divide for me.
I grew up in a conservative Jewish household in Atlanta, Georgia. Israel was a central part of everything we did in school. My elementary and middle school, as well as my high school, both had organized trips to Israel, which was touted as one of the most important things you could do.
Do you want to go to Israel too? Yeah! We want to go! We want to go! We want to go! We want to go! We want to go!
USA.
When I
USA. Keep it
visited
going.
Israel for the first time when
USA.
I was 8 years old,
Same.
I put a note in the Kotel in the Western Wall saying that one day I hope to live in Israel and prosper.
Every one of our kids should be going over, not for 10 days, but for a minimum of a semester or a year. Every time I send somebody over to Israel, they come back, all of a sudden, they feel totally different about who and what they are as Jews.
When I was a teenager and I went to Israel, it was amazing to me to travel in this place where Hebrew was a language that I finally got to speak on the street with people and where Jewish heroes, the streets were named after them.
We're planting seeds that eventually are going to blossom. Does the average congregant understand that I'm teaching them to become Zionists? Probably not, but it is part of my madness, so to speak.
So it's part of my madness. He's teaching them to be Zionists, and they were teaching us to be patriotics, USA, USA, and on and on, and God bless America. You go to these football games and things, they play the national. I don't stand up. Some people stand up and put their hand on their heart. So it's the same conditioning. Victor, let me breathe. 818-985-5735 if you'd like to call in. You don't have to, but if you want to, we'd like to hear from you. We're going to go back to some more clips. But first, Victor, you were telling a story, and it's all connected, y'all. This, we're the best. We're going to export American values. Values what? What kind of value is killing people and starving people? I think they had a biological war in Cuba back in the day. They tried to kill Fidel for so many times. Let them be. And now they have Maduro in jail, like you said. For what reason? And they're lying about these leaders. Victor, in Cuba, go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, so
The cell phone.
sure, yeah. So I would like to tell the story because I think it's important. So the larger delegation left on Monday morning. So most of the people who were part of the Code Pink delegation to go to Cuba left Monday morning. Some of us decided to stay for a few days. It was my first time to Cuba. I was very excited. I said, you know what, let me stay for a few days. And so I did. And
That was pretty rough, though, with no electricity and all that, right? And the food
well,
was sure.
I'm gonna be very honest. There's a New York Post. There are two New York Post hit pieces. And one of them, I believe, or maybe both, explain how we were staying at a 5-star hotel, and we were
Yeah,
being
you
criticized for that.
treated
Now,
do better. Understand? Yes. Go ahead.
but what they don't explain is that understand that because of the blockade, there are a bunch of restrictions. You can only stay at certain hotels. So that particular hotel is not sanctioned by the U.S. government, so we would not be breaking the law. So they don't tell you that part, They make it seem like we were out there, doing, all types of stuff, right? So Wednesday morning we leave. The smaller group leaves, and I hope I got this information correct. But of the 23 that were on their way back to Miami, 16 were detained. All right, we were detained. We were interrogated. Most of us, I want to say, it was 14, I believe, or so that got their cell phones taken away from us. Mine was one of them. I don't have my cell phone with me.
They took it from you and didn't give it back.
Yeah, they have it. They have my cell phone. They have about 14 of our cell phones. Now, I want to also point out that, so I'm with Hands Off for Cuba Committee, but I'm also with Anti-Conquista, which has over, I think, 170 something thousand followers on Instagram. Olivia DiNucci from Code Pink was also detained. Leonardo Flores from Code Pink and Venezuela Solidarity Network, a good, decent man, was also detained. He apparently they were asking him a bunch of questions about Venezuela, not Cuba. Um, Chris Smalls, many of you know, the founder of the Amazon Labor Union, he was detained. Um, Chuck Modi, a reporter, many of you know, he used to work for Deadspin, I believe. He was also detained. He's a reporter, and all his equipment was taken. Katie Halper, many of your folks know who she is. She's a podcaster, comedian, political commentator. She was detained. Lavish from Mint Press was also detained. Caroline Kingsbury from Code Pink, she's an RN and an activist. She was detained, and I'm missing a few other names, but they knew exactly who we were. When I was, they had us go into different rooms. At one point, I could hear them making jokes about detaining us. They knew exactly who Chris Smalls was. I mean, Chris Smalls has a pretty large profile at this point, high profile at this point. They knew exactly who he was. They were definitely targeting Chris. So they knew exactly who we were. They knew exactly what we were doing, but they kept asking the same questions over and over in different ways. With me in particular, the guy wanted to write up a report at the end, and I said, look, you've been asking me the same questions in different ways. I keep telling you I was there for humanitarian aid. If you're going to continue to ask me questions, I just need to speak to an attorney. And he said, okay, I respect that. And then that's when he let me go. But he wanted to continue to ask me. It was basically the same questions in different ways and different styles. But yeah, we were all interrogated. Many of us had our phones taken away. And I just need the people to understand that this is political. Like the reason why they did it's political persecution. They knew exactly who they were targeting. They knew exactly what they were doing. They took it as a big joke. And there's no other reason. I can't explain why we were detained other than this has to be some sort of political persecution. And the whole world knows why we were there. There was no secret. There were news articles. Everyone knew this thing was public information. Code Pink put out press releases. This wasn't a secret. So why detain us? And why these high profile folks? They knew exactly what they were doing. And again, when you talk about constitutional rights, human rights, right now, none of those things mean anything. They're just nice words, as George Carlin used to say. This is a question of power and who has power. And the Trump administration, the Trump regime, they don't respect international laws. They don't respect constitutional law. They're just doing whatever they want. What's going to happen to us? I don't know. We're going to have to lawyer up and see where this goes. But hopefully nothing does happen to us. I'm a first responder. I've been on your program before. I'm just a working class Joe. Or Jose. And so I get in my truck
guy.
I'm the truck guy. That's right. I get in my truck every day and I try to do my best to make sure that the community is safe. That's my job. That's my role in society. Why they're messing with me? Again, I'm part of Anti-Conquista, which has a bunch of followers. I just mentioned the other high profile names. There was a clear intent to politically, attack us, if you will. And so I just wanted your audience to know that because I think this is really important.
It is very important. I was in Cuba 2 years ago, and I think two of our people were detained also. But of course, they're doing more because they have this war in Cuba. Now, did you fly into Miami?
Yeah, and Miami always scared. I've never been to Miami, and I'm terrified of Miami. But yeah, I did fly into Miami, then took a charter to Havana.
Right, and you came back to Miami.
Correct, and that's where we were detained.
And so, for the audience, you just can't go to Cuba. You have to go under some type of special visa.
Correct.
So that's one of the things. So you went under a special visa.
Correct.
And then back in the day, you couldn't even go from the United States until Obama. What they did, you'd have to go to Canada and then fly to Cuba, or go to Mexico and then fly to Cuba. And the Cubans were sophisticated enough not to stamp your passport so you wouldn't get jammed up. I went to Cuba. Okay, come to this room in here.
Right.
Wow. 818-985-5735. You can stay with us. We're going to go to the next clip. I lost count. I hope you did. So I'm playing this. So the mentality that the United States has, the Democrats, the Republicans, they're for this war. They don't know why, but they're for it. And they try to, we're going to stop. You need to go to Congress to go to war. If they went to Congress, guess what? They would have went to war anyway. when Bush went to Congress for his war, guess what? The Democrats supported him. They just want that power. You can't do it on your own. You have to come through us. It's all this power game. Let's play this clip, and then we'll go to a caller. And then, Victor, if you want to still chime in, you're welcome to stay. So I'm trying to just show the indoctrination, the brainwashing that the Israeli folks go through, that we go through, to kill people, to say this is okay.
I learned about Israel as this great miracle of Jewish history. For thousands of years, we were persecuted, and Israel is the place that you can go to be safe. My grandfather's family made it to Israel. His immediate family were some of the only ones who escaped the Holocaust. Many American Jews, if not most people I know, have family or friends that live in Israel.
Israel is the insurance policy. It's still, today a Jew doesn't have to worry. Where is he going to go, God forbid? Even here. No Holocaust survivor will say to you it could never happen again. I was born in Poland, 1940. Not a good place for a Jewish kid to be born. My parents were separated. My father went through a series of camps. Who knows why I survived and 1.5 million Jewish children perished. And so Israel became very, very significant in my life, even though 6,000 miles away. I probably visited Israel over 100 times in my lifetime. As we sit now, my granddaughter is there for 2 weeks in high school.
I did have many friends in Israel growing up, and every time I would visit Israel, I felt closer and closer. The Jewish summer camps would always bring a big contingency of Israelis to try to drive Israeli culture within the camp and connect the American Jews to Israeli culture.
So when I was in high school, I went on this Jewish youth trip to Israel, and one of the programs we did was called Gadna, where we spent a day pretending to be soldiers in the Israeli army. We wore army uniforms, and stuff like that was just sort of a normal part of what our childhood looked like.
At summer camp, in the middle of the night, they would wake us up and take us out. Sometimes that was to pull pranks, and other times I remember doing military games, using the command pozatsta, sneaking around. So anytime the commander, who was one of our counselors, said pozatsta, we would all get on the ground, and they made a game out of it, simulating being in the military and sneaking around and having to be a part of that.
On youth programs that I participated in Israel, you could spend a whole week on an Israeli army base wearing army uniforms and going through a sort of simulation of basic training. And that's where some people, learn to shoot guns for the first time.
It's not just regular military games, it's specifically using Israeli military commands, often with Israeli counselors giving them. When you're a young kid, that really drills it into you that this is something important. And I wanted to be a part of that.
We often talked about the ways that you could be a good supporter of the Jewish people. One was to join the army, and the other was to go become an Israel advocate.
There were even clubs within school to work on advocating for Israel. My high school sent a delegation to the AIPAC conference.
AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They're the people who tell the Congress which legislation affecting Israel they like and which they don't.
The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable today, unbreakable tomorrow, unbreakable forever.
AIPAC is just the thing that you do. Like going to the AIPAC conference is just sort of seen as like a community event.
Here with us today are leaders from across the pro-Israel community, including Abe Foxman.
I learned a long time ago, there is no way you can say no to Abe.
I don't know to what extent anybody makes a difference. I try to make a difference. Jewish education is still a major priority for the future, and certainly relationship to Israel. If you were to ask me, you had $100 million, how would you change the future of American Jews? I would make trips to Israel available to any Jewish kid who wanted to go. Make that experience. They're doing it now. It's called Birthright.
It is up to you to be our soldiers abroad, armed with love and knowledge and conviction ready to sway public opinion in Israel's favor.
Okay, so he said something very interesting. He said Israel was a good place, safe place for Jews. And I want to amend that. I want to amend it to say Israel is a safe place for European white Jews. It's a white nationalist society. I knew people. I knew somebody who was a black Jew from Ghana. They call themselves the Hebrew Israelites. They went to Israel. They stayed there. They have a restaurant there. They're discriminated against. She said, yeah, the man come by and, hey, thinks he's a prostitute because she's a black skin. They did the airlift from the Ethiopian Jews, who are also discriminated against. But they wanted to put them in the army. So what I want to do before we go to the calls, I want to play this last clip because, be all you can be all you can be, and join the army.
Learning about the quote-unquote conflict is something that is part of programming, as something that you have to learn how to defend Israel from the lies that other people are saying, and you have to be able to tell people the truth. By the time I got to college, I had teachers who said to me, people hate Israel, people are attacking Israel, people don't know the truth about Israel, and we're the only people who actually know the truth about Israel. If you're a Jewish college student, Hillel is your central address for Jewish life on campus. As a freshman, I remember walking into Hillel was one of the first places I went when I got to campus. It's a place where you can go for meals, to meet other young Jewish people. Pro-Israel advocacy is a central part of how they work to engage Jewish young people.
I'm the Director of Engagement and Programs here at Hillel, and this campus happens to be very proactive for Israel. A lot of people are very passionate, a lot of people love Israel, and there's a lot of advocacy here on campus in lots of different ways, lots of different groups. How did you become involved in advocacy for Israel?
I kind of came to Hillel just because I was new on campus. I didn't really know where to go, and I really did find a lot of friends here.
I came here on and off, but then when I went on the birthright trip and kind of got to know the staff, Tom and Jackie, a lot better, got to know people at Hillel a lot better, and just got to know Israel a lot better, I came back and I knew that I wanted to put a lot more of myself into Hillel, the Jewish community on campus, and just Israel advocacy in general. On birthright, we had Israeli soldiers with us throughout the entire trip. You learn so much, and you learn the reason that they serve.
It's just a feeling that I don't think any of us could ever imagine except for
My job is doing Israeli program on campus, and that relates to Jewish events, cultural, political. Israeli events, cultural, political. I would say, name a university in America, we probably have a person there. I like to talk about the Army a lot because that's an experience that I lived through, and I have a lot of personal stories. There are a couple of students who said, yeah, I'm thinking about joining the IDF one day. So my first thing is saying to them, are you sure? Because it's not an easy decision. That being said, it will probably end up being the most meaningful experience that you ever go through. You're gonna tell your kids stories about it. Yeah.
One of our former young emissaries just graduated into the Air Force. I mean, that's the greatest gift you can give, and we actually have had quite a few of our former students join the IDF. Amazing. I mean, just amazing. These are kids. These are 18, 19-year-olds.
It's like something I've dreamed about doing since I was 7 years old.
You have you find your sense of purpose.
All my friends are so proud of me, and they understand that this is something that I have to do.
Almost 10% of my graduating class at my Jewish high school joined the Israeli army. And I had many friends from my summer camp and youth group who joined the army as well.
Part of becoming part of Israeli society is to join the military. When I was in high school, I told my parents I don't even need to apply to college because I'm gonna just join the Israeli military and make Aliyah and live in Israel. I honestly have felt for many years that I fit in better in Israeli society than I do in American society, even before I moved there. And I wanted to defend what I saw as my country. So when I enlisted, I was a magist, which is a heavy machine gunist. during my basic and advanced training, and then they put me on a light machine gun. We were training for war, training for strategy to conquer hilltops and conquer open spaces. 1 week was focused on urban warfare in close quarters, and that was simulated in what looked like Arab housing. After the 7 months of our training, we were deployed to the West Bank. Our missions included working in 2 different checkpoints, patrolling villages on foot in full gear and bulletproof vests. We would go into apartment buildings, go up to the roof, and make sure that we could be seen so that we could make our presence felt. We wanted them to know that we were watching. That was the goal of the mission. We would set up what's called a checkpost, which is a checkpoint that is situated at a major intersection at checkpoints. We would stop people, create a traffic jam, check their IDs, check their trunks, every day on their way to work or on their way to visit their family, to keep them on their toes, essentially. And they being Palestinians. Even though Israel was a central part of everything we did in school, we never really discussed the Palestinians. It was presented to us that Israel was basically an empty wasteland when the Jews arrived. There were some Arabs there, they said, but there was no organized people. They had really treated the land poorly. Yeah, there are Palestinians, and they just want to kill us all and want us to leave the land.
I just don't think I had any conception of anything about what it means to be a Palestinian besides that it means that you're a person who kills Jews.
So I played that to show the parallel with America. One of my son's friends joined he's all about the military. Before there wasn't a war there. And I said, do you know why there's war? He said, oh, there's a lot of reasons. I said, no, there's only one reason why we have wars, because they can get people to fight. Because they can get people to fight. This is an example of how they get people, the total brainwashing. I think Israel should become the 51st state of the United States, except they're both going down in flames, so it won't happen. Another one of my cousins joined the military because, be all you can be. They were getting, I heard at one point, $10,000 bonuses to sign up, but now they're going to go back to the draft. So he was stationed in Bahrain. And, I'm going to fight the bad guys. I said, you're fighting on the wrong side. Of course, totally, the algorithms give him all this right-wing stuff. So, and look what's happening in Bahrain now. Luckily, he's out now and he's not there. He could be dead. So we're running quickly out of time. So I'm going to get the last words. We have one caller, and then Victor, you can make the last comments. Caller line 1, we have, who is this here? We got callers, Harold from Santa Barbara. Talk to me, Harold. What you got to say?
I like your parallelism. Forgive me. And to your guest, I have to admit, it was a show called Move the Crowd. I spoke to a Cuban official, and I told them that I had friends that told me about Cubanos, and I experienced exactly what you were talking about, and that is we called it spiritual. There was a cohesion amongst the people, and then you started feeling sorry for your enemy. But about your cell phones, they're scraping your cell phones because they're going to create an artificial intelligence, a profile about you, so they can predict what you're going to do. Obviously, you probably already know that. So thank you very much.
Wow. So yeah, all your contacts, they know all about you, man, Victor. And it's just, but we're going to win this. We're going to win this, Victor. I am very sure. And I think the biggest mistake they made was, this is what was going to happen because this Pinocchio, people call him Trump, is so focused on making money, and he's made a lot of money. a lot of, and making money. And he's just like a big child playing with toy soldiers. And yeah, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's go everywhere. Yeah, but you're losing, punk. Victor, before I say something I'm not supposed to on the air, give me some last words.
Last words. I would encourage folks to go to Cuba. Get yourself that special visa. Go as part of a delegation. Don't go as a tourist. I've learned from my experience. This was my first time in Cuba, so don't make the mistake that I made. I will not be bringing my personal cell phone anymore to Cuba. Get yourself what's called a quote unquote burner phone. And not because you're doing anything illegal. It's just I don't need the government. I don't need the U.S. government all up in my business. You don't need to have my cell phone. I won't be making that mistake. And so if you take videos, take audios, photos, figure out a way to send them back home electronically, put that burner phone on a reset setting and give it back to them if they stop you with that. So, but go to Cuba, learn about Cuba. Don't go as a tourist, because if you're gonna go as a tourist, we talked about you can go to Mexico or Canada. You're not going to really enjoy the full experience. You're not really going to understand, because you're just going to look at the what and not understand the why. And what I mean by that is that the Cuban system is an interesting system, a fascinating system. You should learn about the system. You should learn about their healthcare system, their education system, all the social programs that they have, all the social safety net programs that they have, all the rich history that exists in Cuba. Learn about those things. Go as part of a delegation. Be disciplined. Just as a personal anecdote, I may, on a couple nights I had one drink. I didn't go to the clubs.
About 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I wasn't out there messing around. I was out there strictly on business. And when I say business, revolutionary activity, learning the culture, learning about the people, learning about the system, and making sure people understood I was there to help and that they're not alone.
Exactly. That was my, when I went there for a couple of times, and it was there to help the people. But and we're going to close on this. If there was no blockade, could you imagine what Cuba would be? They have free health care. They would be such a thriving society.
Yes.
And that's a threat
to
the United States to make their money. You've been listening to Cut to the Chase. My name is Sly Rivers, and I'll be back next week with more information. Luta continua.
No hatred, no violence, no starvation, and no greed, and no kings, no kings, no kings.
Tune in to KPF